Hello and welcome to the Legacy Football Podcast. My name is Alex and I'll be your host. I got Jordan, Aryan, and Jake with me today. And we are doing a new segment called Studs and Duds. In this episode, we're going to be focusing on the NFC North, but we are going to have more episodes in the future that are going to be specifically designed for each division in each conference. So how we doing today, guys?
Pretty good, brother. Pretty good.
Excellent. Thank you for having us.
Awesome. Happy to hear. Funny enough, the guy that's going to start us out is the one guy that's super quiet and shy over there right now.
He's waiting his turn. He's waiting his turn.
I'm just waiting my opportunity.
How we doing?
You know how much I thought of it.
Awesome. Well, so overall today, like I said, we're talking about the NFC North. Each one of us has one stud and one dud. We're going to give our reasons as to why we think that this player is going to be a stud in fantasy or a dud in fantasy. This is for standard redraft leagues, so not dynasty rankings. But without further ado, Jordan, why don't we go ahead and kick it off to you?
Yeah, thanks for throwing that over to me, Alex. So we'll go ahead and start with the NFC North here. My stud is Aaron Jones. I know there's not a lot of people that are talking about Aaron Jones right now. Coming in with an ADP of 18. Had a little bit of slight production drop last year. Missed 6 games because of the hamstring injury. Also shared some of the production with Dillon. But I think being in a new offense, in a new environment with a rookie quarterback, I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for him there, especially with goal line production in that offense. So I think when you look at a guy like Aaron Jones, you look at that ADP number of 18, especially with the way that he finished the season last year with that playoff production, he was a large part of Green Bay's success in the playoffs. And I think in a similar situation with the young quarterback in Minnesota, I could see his trajectory. I could definitely see him taking that next step. Now, when you look at the dud, we'll stick to the team that he was at previously before that.
Well, hold on real quick. Let's talk about the stud first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't hear anything about a stud yet.
All right, so we got
Oh, all right.
Let's hear why you think that then.
Well, I guess my question would be, look, Aaron Jones is obviously a very explosive player, a very efficient player off the field. My question is, so how is Minnesota going to use him in that offense? Are they going to use him? Can he get a ton of volume? And if he does get that volume, does the efficiency take a step back? Is he, with the amount of usage that he's had over the years, does he still have the tread on the tires to be 200 plus carry kind of guy? I don't know. I don't necessarily see that out of him, so it's really going to depend on how they use him. If they use him wisely and efficiently and don't try to just hammer him, I could see him being effective. But I feel like if they try to force feed him, it's just not going to be the style of play that was so effective for him in Green Bay.
Yeah, I think if you look at what Minnesota's trying to do offensively, I think one of the things that they've struggled with since the departure of Dalvin Cook is finding that feature back. And, Aaron Jones, like I said, going back to last season, he missed 6 games with a hamstring injury. And you know how hamstrings go. Those types of things could linger. But if you look at just the season before that, he played 17 games, started all those games, had a career year, over 1,100 yards rushing. Might have not had as much production as far as touchdown goes, but he is 29. I still do think he has some tread on the tires. So I think this is a new opportunity for him. And like I said, in the playoffs last year, in the wild card game against the Cowboys, he had 118 yards and 3 touchdowns. So I still think there's a lot of tread on the tires there, and where he's valued at wise, I can see that easily change.
Fair point.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, Aaron Jones, he has the opportunity. They wanted to give it to Madison last year, and Madison didn't do anything with it. And having a young quarterback or Sam Darnold, either way, they're going to run a line with him. So,
Yeah. So what's
volume base.
a young quarterback's 2 best friends? Running back and a tight end. So
Absolutely. Yep.
again, a lot of check downs for a young quarterback. I think sky's the limit for this year.
Yeah, they're going to need him because they don't have their starting tight end to start the season, right?
Yeah.
TJ Hawkinson. So who's they rolling out a tight end? Do we know?
TJ Hawkinson in Minnesota.
In Minnesota, who's taking the snaps for him as the season to be out?
What? I think Josh Oliver's there. which is good. Which is good for Aaron Jones, right?
Yeah.
They're starting tight end, so
Yeah, and
he's gonna be McCarthy's guy.
and Jake just brought up a good point about the value in having a running back that you can check the ball down to with the younger quarterback. One of the things that's super underrated about Aaron Jones is his value out of the backfield as a receiving back. He's got four years in the NFL with 400 yards, close to more receiving. I mean, last year he had 5 receiving touchdowns. The year before that he had 6. So he's also a plus value back out of the backfield too, which is super valuable for a young rookie quarterback in a Kevin O'Connell offense. So like I said, I think there's a lot of upside with his ranking at, and like I said, I think he'll have a fresh set of legs because he missed 6 games last year, and it was evident by the way he came on at the end of last season in the playoffs.
So last year he had 1 receiving touchdown and 30 receptions.
Oh, excuse me, I had that wrong. It was the year before that. Year before that, 2022 he had 5, 2021 he had 6, and then basically, like I said, he's been close to 400 yards receiving or more, with the exception of last year in his first 2 years in the league. So, like I said, he's been a valuable back. I mean, if you can get a guy who's getting 30 or more catches out of the backfield as a receiving back too, that's pretty valuable over the course of the season.
Yeah, I think just to push back on him, he's getting to that age 30 season, So we see this is like either you're going to get 1 more year out of him type of thing, or he's going to start falling off. Not to say that I'm afraid of the downfall for the guy. Like I want to see him be successful, but look at him coming in. He's like I said, he's creeping up on 30, and he's being drafted right now at the end of the 5th round if you're in a 10 to 12 team. So ADP of 512. They're projecting his rush yards to be right around 900. It's projected about 5 rushing touchdowns, 44 receptions. So, I mean, that's a nice stat line. If he can,
And
he
to
can
be,
fulfill
ahead.
these projections, if he can fulfill these projections in a full point PPR format, he's looking at about 182 point season.
Yeah,
You know?
and I think if you just look at the track record, I mean, he's already had 3 years in the league with over 1,000 yards rushing. Like I said, I mean, 3 of those years he had 1,500 plus yards in production. Like I said, I think based off that value projection, based off his new situation, I think there's a lot to like about that situation, which is, obviously why I have him there in that position. And honestly, actually, the more I talk about it, the more I actually like it.
The more I want to draft him.
Yeah, no, seriously. I was like,
All
what
right.
I'm talking about, I'm telling myself.
Well, let's talk about the guy that you're going to sell yourself off of. A guy that I know you had last year in LDS. Let's talk about his former teammate, AJ Dillon.
Yeah, so good transition there. So talking about a guy where Aaron Jones' former team was at, where he shared some of the production over the past couple of years. AJ Dillon, I think he's been one of those guys. A lot of people have projected him, based off, people, all the hype surrounding about his strength, his lower body strength, went viral. I think there's been this idea of wanting this production there, but I think with sharing some of the lows with Aaron Jones, I think he hasn't really got the rub of the green that he would like. And obviously the ADP sees that too, because they have him valued around 57 this year. And with the addition of Josh Jacobs now in free agency, who a lot of people view as probably the top 10 back in the league, if not higher, if we're being honest about it, I think it's going to be tough to find production there for AJ moving forward, and I would see that trend continuing on that number, if not getting worse.
Marshawn Lloyd, baby. Marshawn's coming through. You hear some of the rumblings in camp?
Yeah.
That's a great point too. I didn't even write that down, include that in my notes, but Marshawn Lloyd is one of those guys out of USC. A lot of people saw that he was maybe undervalued and where he was drafted as far as just the running back class in general. There wasn't a lot of people who were high on this class. So I think being able to bring in a guy like Marshawn Lloyd too, I think that really puts AJ Dillon in a interesting situation. And I'm not even trying to be biased just based off my personal fantasy experience with AJ Dillon, because there was a lot of tough moments there with him, especially with those times where Aaron Jones was out. You thought there was those moments where he could probably take that next step in production and see some value there, but I didn't see it. And like I said, with the addition of Josh Jacobs, I see that trend continuing going into 2024.
I think Lloyd is the number 2 guy in the depth chart anyways right now. So
Yeah. My biggest thing with
so
AJ
there you go.
Dillon, my biggest thing with AJ Dillon is I could see him being a trade candidate. I could see him getting, getting an opportunity from Dallas or somewhere. If Zeke and Robert Dowdle don't really do anything, in the
So they'll-
preseason. Yeah,
But
more than
don't
likely
sleep
not.
on Rico, dude. Uncle Rico's through, man. Come on, Rico's got some game to him. I think, is going to be a guy. I think that Rico's a sleeper. That's another episode.
Yeah. But no, I mean overall, I think if AJ Dillon went somewhere else, he had a much better opportunity. But Marshawn Lloyd was one of my favorite running backs coming out, and opportunity-wise, I don't really see it for him with Jacobs in the mix now. But yeah, I definitely could see AJ Dillon losing a lot of work this year compared to previous years.
Yeah.
But if he goes to a new location, at round 19, he's undrafted in most leagues.
Yeah,
I think
what opportunity in that regard.
I think that's going to. Yeah, I think that's going to
Rightfully
be.
so.
I think that's going to be the big thing with AJ Dillon is with the addition of Lloyd. I think you're going to find yourself with Dillon in this weird spot to where, depending on where the majority of those carry goes in that Matt LaFleur offense, you could see him wanting to get out of there. And like I said, I think you think of a team like Houston, Cincinnati, maybe one of those type of teams that could use a young guy.
Send him to the Chargers, baby. Send him to the Chargers.
Hey,
Hey, use
honestly,
the fullback. All right, put him in at
Fullback.
fullback, dude. Okay, we'll use him like use check.
I was gonna say, you guys already have Gus. You guys already have a goal line back. You don't have a true every down back.
Chargers don't have a lot of things.
We do need a lot of things. We got to keep our quarterback off the pickleball court. That's number one focus right now.
As the brand ambassador of the Chargers haters community, Jake Briggs does not approve.
Hater, baby. Sorry, brother.
All right. Well, we'll save. There's going to be plenty of Chargers on the stud and dud list, and I would imagine more duds and studs.
Absolutely.
But we'll talk about those.
Room full of haters, man. Sometimes you just gotta let it
AFC
roll.
less hypocrisy.
I don't.
Hey, bro, as a Raider fan, I'm never going to be on
Like
air
that,
saying something good about the Chargers. All right? I'm sorry, that ain't gonna happen. But we'll send it over to our resident Charger fan, and let's see who you have as your NFC North stud.
NFC North stud and dud. Thank you for bringing me into this, Mish. Really appreciate the opportunity here. And I'm going to bang the drum. I'm going to bang the drum for a guy. This is a guy who hasn't been talked about the way he should be talked about. And that's David Montgomery. All right? You want to talk about a stud in the North? I mean, that division right now runs through Detroit. And Detroit runs on the back of David Montgomery. David Montgomery is he's the Draymond Green of that team. You know what I mean? He's the heartbeat, and he's the dude out there getting it done on an every down basis. Now, a lot of people are high on Jahmyr Gibbs, and for good reason. That's obviously a very talented player, very efficient player, incredibly fast, like just electric in the open field. But look, Dan Campbell's biting kneecaps, and what better player to have biting kneecaps off these linebackers than David Montgomery out there in that number 5 jersey? And you want to talk about a value? You get a guy like David Montgomery who put up over 200 fantasy points in a half-point PPR format last year, missing how many games? He missed 3, 4 games. And he missed a few. Missed 3 games, right? But he's coming back to a team that has one of the most talented teams in the NFL right now, in my opinion. When you look at the roster as a whole, he's coming back to one of the most talented teams in the NFL. He's going to be the lead back from a carry standpoint, and he's certainly going to be the guy in the red zone. So it's just as far as old school downhill one-cut running back that perfectly fits the team's personality, you can't beat David Montgomery right now. And I think the draft position at round 6, bro, you can get a guy like that who can put up 200 plus fantasy points at the running back position in round 6. I mean, that's a bona fide stud, bro. Bang the drum.
Yeah.
Drums for David Montgomery.
Real quick. So if you're looking at David Montgomery at pick 61, and you're looking at Aaron Jones at pick 56, who are you guys taking?
I'm going to go David Montgomery. David Montgomery.
So
I would take Aaron Jones personally.
So for me, I'm going to go Aaron Jones with that, but here's the thing. The tough part with David Montgomery with me is because of how high Jahmyr Gibbs is valued, and because of the fact that David Montgomery was the main focal of Detroit's offense because even Dan Campbell then came out and they said that they were going to bring Gibbs along patiently. You wonder, right, this second year, because of the way Jahmyr Gibbs came on at the end of the season, and because he does bring a different dynamic that Montgomery doesn't bring, you wonder what happens with David Montgomery's production from last year to this year. I mean, if you look at the ADP right now, as Aryan mentioned, they have David Montgomery at 20, and right now they have Jahmyr Gibbs at 5. So obviously that tells you that they have a lot of confidence in what they feel Jahmyr Gibbs is going to do this year. So for me, aside from David Montgomery, the player, but talking about it from a true value perspective from fantasy, I worry about if some of his production is going to change because of the rise of Jahmyr Gibbs, and that's the thing. That's for me. That's why if you had to flip the coin, I'm going Aaron Jones.
I get that. I think. Go ahead.
Okay, I was just gonna say the only other thing I would say in his production as well, if you look at Sam Laporta last year, Sam Laporta had 10 touchdowns. Do you think he's gonna have 10 touchdowns again this season, or do you think a few of those are gonna be rushing touchdowns by a different touchdown?
I think 10 touchdowns would be a ceiling for Sam Laporta. I think he's more in the 6 to 8 range from a seasonal basis if I was going to make a prediction for that position. Yeah. So I think he'll get a couple of those.
Yeah, so Montgomery easily could have the same touchdowns as he had last season because, like you said, he missed games, and he's still going to be the red zone
He'll
guy.
have more. Montgomery put up more points this year than he did last year.
I think
He balled out last year.
I think the two people that you got to worry about taking production away from Montgomery is once again Gibbs, but also the person that really hasn't even taken off in that offense and James Williams.
Well, we're gonna get to J-Mo and we're gonna get to Jahmyr. So let's stick
But
on.
Just real quick on the David Montgomery point to push back on the Aaron Jones comparison. So I see really nothing about Aaron Jones' player profile that impresses more than David Montgomery's right now. First of all, Aaron Jones is older. Okay, he's a 2-year older player. Secondly, he missed games last year with a soft tissue injury, hamstring, and he was significantly less productive than David Montgomery was last year. Third point, Aaron Jones is going to a new team with a new system and a rookie quarterback. So we can be all as sold as we want on Jason McCarthy. At the end of the day, he's a rookie quarterback. And even historically good rookie quarterbacks don't necessarily produce high value fantasy players around them. You know, like if you look at the best historically, the best rookie quarterbacks and what they've done with the running backs on the roster, I'd like to do this, and I don't have an example off the top of my head, but I can't think of a rookie quarterback that rostered a running back that was just so incredibly impressive because teams they don't have to do as much to defend the pass, so that they can defend the backs more. They can focus on the backs. So I think
yeah, but here's the problem with that though. Go ahead, Al.
Was Jared Goff a rookie when he had Todd Gurley? Because that's the only one that I could think of that would be like a similar range of player, you know.
I don't know if Jared Goff was drafted after Todd Gurley or before.
Yeah, I can't remember.
If that was
Todd Gurley was before, then he would obviously have the year where he was off of ACL.
There's just not a lot of examples back in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, no, that's the only one that I could think of.
Right. And running. So
the question you got to ask yourself is with Aaron Jones in comparison to David Montgomery is who is it that Aaron Jones has to share with? There's no Jahmyr Gibbs. So
Ty Johnson.
Right. So
and I think
I don't know if Alexander Madison's still on the roster too, but
no, he's with the Raiders.
He went to the Black Hole.
He's with the Raiders now, so yeah, he wants to go see that.
So people go to die.
Yeah.
People go to die.
They'll be our
fantasy players.
They'll be our RB3.
But in Detroit, there's so many more mouths to feed over there, and David Montgomery had their bad thing. But if you look at his production last year is a career type of year for David Montgomery in an offense where you expect other people to get featured more, whereas Jones was considered to have a down year last year, and now he's going somewhere where he's going to get more opportunities in an offense to where there's less people. So he's going to be whether it's 213 carries or whatever the difference is, there's going to be more opportunities carries in Minnesota for Aaron Jones as opposed to Montgomery because you have to think in year 2 They are just absolutely.
They're not going to feature him out of the backfield the way you guys are thinking, though. Jahmyr is not the type of guy that you're going to dot the backfield.
Did you
He's an Alvin Kamara type.
Did you watch the tape at
He's
Alabama
a
and Georgia
really
Tech?
good player,
Yes.
bro. You're going to use him in the slot, right? You're
No,
going to move him around behind the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, they have put
You're
him in
going
the
to
slot.
make the defense have to adjust to him. But you're not going to just feature him in the backfield, especially when you have David Montgomery, especially when you play in the NFC North, and especially when your head coach is Dan Campbell. I promise you, he's not going to utilize Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm willing to bet right now that David Montgomery will have more touches than Jahmyr Gibbs will.
I
Do you
agree.
argue with that?
Yeah, I could agree with that, but I don't think that it's going to be such a wide difference like it was last year, even with Montgomery.
It wasn't a
3
super
games.
big difference last year. I mean, they were comparable. I mean, we could look at the stats, but I still think he's going to outpace it from a standpoint of touches. So when you're talking to me about featuring a player, he's not even going to out-touch the guy we're talking about. So, yes, Jahmyr Gibbs is really good. Yes, electric. But that is David Montgomery's backfield, and Jahmyr Gibbs is a weapon and tool they can use however they want in their offense. But I think he's the back. He's the running back for that.
Yeah.
That's why he's
Okay.
okay.
And I'm sure we'll be bringing him back up in just a moment because we're going to be talking about Jahmyr Gibbs in a little bit. So we'll table this for now and jump back on it in a bit. Let's talk about your dud. Obviously, a very high-profile name with behind himself last year. Let's hear your case.
Nobody wants to hear this, all right? Nobody wants to hear that this dud, all right? I don't want to have to be the one to tell you all this that somebody's got to say, okay? The man, okay? Look, regression is imminent for this guy. And I'm saying that not on the standpoint of his talent, not on the standpoint of his age or his ability, but we've seen the injuries pile up on last year. He was able to come back and get the season last year, right? He didn't end up playing.
I think he missed 8, so he would have played 9.
Quite a bit. I mean, that's a significant amount of the season to miss, right? And now you're coming back to a team that's going to be quarterbacked by either the Marlboro Band's grandson or Jayden McCarthy. Okay? So either one of those guys, I'm not super excited about. I mean, no disrespect to Jayden McCarthy, but I wasn't super stoked on him coming out of this draft. And look, I meditate too. All right, I'm with the Zen. I like the way he approaches the game. I think a reality quarterback, he's a winner. He can keep the chains moving. He's accurate. He's accurate on the move. He makes good decisions under stress. He's a good reality quarterback. But I don't see him lighting up the stat sheet in the way that's going to produce the numbers that we've seen in the past from Justin Jefferson. So right now, people are drafting him as a 101. So I mean, there's a lot of people you can't even have a conversation about Justin Jefferson. Touching PPRs on that. But he's not falling out of the top 5. So when you're drafting a guy at the top 5, I would expect him to have as good or better of a season as the past. And I can't say that I expect that from Justin Jefferson. So without reason.
Hey, Alex. Can I ask a quick question? Did you dunk that on podcast?
Y'all need to get on what I'm on.
Hey, no. I don't know what this dude is smoking right now, but this dude in 9 games last year still had over 1,000 yards receiving. Okay, super productive. Okay, has multiple NFL records going into his 5th year. Give a fresh opportunity with a new rookie quarterback who people think in that system was specifically picked with that head coach. So obviously the head coach and them moved up for a reason.
And all offseason, it was always J.J. McCarthy.
Yeah,
It was never, we want Jaden Daniels, we want Michael Penix. It was always, we want J.J. McCarthy, and everybody thought that was.
And here's another stat for you, and here's a guy who I can relate and compare to. Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams had what we thought what we thought had a season terrible, career altering, all that. All of us saw that. We see the documentary on Netflix. We saw him voice his frustration. Okay, the guy still in a down year last year had almost 1,200 yards receiving and 8 touchdowns.
Yeah, that's nothing compared to when he had a good quarterback, though.
But at the same time, any team would gladly take that in a heartbeat.
For sure, right? Jefferson would be better off on a lot of other things.
But at the same time, if you still got that type of production from Justin Jefferson in a down year with a rookie quarterback, you would still be in a good position.
So
I think he's safe. Yeah,
I'll throw these stats out here. Justin Jefferson has 6 games without Kirk Cousins in his career so far. And his stats in those 6 games are 38 receptions, 500 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
Average.
Which is that's average at best, right? So
For a guy like him.
yeah, so for a guy who's potentially going 1-1 overall, I can only go off what he's done without Kirk Cousins, but he's going to do without Kirk Cousins this year.
And that's the point I'm trying to get at with Jefferson. It's not it's not a value fantasy player. Obviously, still happy. You can't let the guy fall out the top 10. Like, I'm almost saying this, so if I have a late pick in the draft, somebody else doesn't draft it, but I get another back. You know what I mean? How crazy would that be? How crazy would it be if that's the ball?
No, I see what you're saying, because this is kind of how I felt about a similar argument, because I almost included him with my NFC West studs. But this is kind of how I felt about Puka going into this year with the addition of Cooper. I felt there was going to be a similar situation. I know Alex had brought this up in talking points. Like, did we kind of forget about Cooper Cup? Because Puka took everybody by surprise last year, but now year 2, opportunity to scheme against him. And now you get Cooper for a full season. I think that trajectory changes a little bit based off year 1. But I know that's a little bit off topic, but that's kind of how I see what it is that we're talking about, right?
It's a good comp. It's a good comp.
Real quick, you mentioned the quarterback play, Jake.
Yeah.
Do you think that Nick Mullins and Josh Dobbs were better or going to be worse than what having Sam Darnold or Jayden Kirk? Because I think either way, their quarterback situation.
Yep.
I think it's remained the same as of right now.
Josh Dobbs is a rocket scientist, dude. Are you serious?
Doesn't mean he has a rocket for an arm.
Josh Dobbs balled out last year. I mean, they're
His
going to start Josh
fantasy
Dobbs
did,
last
his rushing.
Yeah,
His
yeah,
rushing did, but
Well,
they weren't winning games.
Well, I think the other thing too is Minnesota for a while there was staying in fucking the playoff protection, and Josh Dobbs and Nick Mullins did have a little bit of success there. I'm pretty sure Nick Mullins had a 300-yard game, and Dobbs
He's a
went
gunslinger.
and Dobbs and
Don't care.
Dobbs went viral for those first couple weeks of the season because they had won the 2 straight or whatever. So I think that's a testament once again to the head coach being able to elevate the quarterback position
He's a stud.
with his, and so you look at that situation with bringing in a guy like JJ, who was in the most pro-ready offense at Michigan. I mean, you even just listen to some of that terminology that he has to go over in Harbaugh's offense. And I mean, these are like full sentence calls. And he has the freedom to dictate protection and all these different things that some of these guys at that level weren't asked to do. Which is why, once again, a team like Minnesota felt comfortable in moving up to acquire a guy like that with that head coach. So I can definitely see the side of it where you're bringing Aryan, where you can see a little bit of the drop off, but I don't see it being steep enough to where it gets out of that top 10 category. I see it maybe being like kind of a Devontae Adams last year, but even
That's
then,
fair.
that's I think that would be a stretch.
My final point on this. Basically, if you believe in JJ, you believe in JJ. If you believe in JJ McCarthy, you believe in Justin Jefferson, right? And like I've said before, JJ McCarthy is a really good reality quarterback. But when we watch him throw the football, there's no layering of the throw. The ball is a line drive or a line drive with a slight arc. And that's really good for the short to intermediate portion of the field. But you start pushing those deeper routes, you start needing a little more finesse, you need a little bit of a touch on the out route get in there. I'm not saying you can't develop that, but that's not something I've seen a lot of from him in college, and that's not something I've seen any of from him in camp so far. He had one nice little fade route. I'm not saying the guy doesn't have any touch, but when he starts playing, you see him roll out, you see him do his thing athletically. He'd much rather put the ball on a line than touch it to where it's got to go. So I think when you look at a guy like Justin Jefferson, I mean, he succeed no matter who's throwing the ball. It's not going to matter. But if you're drafting him at the 101 and expecting, 1,500 yards and 10+ touchdowns, I just don't see that happening McCarthy's rookie year.
I think you just might have made a slogan for the Minnesota content creators that AJ succeeds, AJ succeeds. So, you might have done something there. Shameless plug. Shameless
Right?
plug.
Better get the patent on it or the trademark right now.
Yeah,
There you go.
get it out.
All right, let's move on. Let's talk about Jake Briggs' studs and duds. Who
Yeah,
started
so
with Jake?
my stud, Jayden Reed, out of the Packers though. Rookie last year, right? His coach, Matt LaFleur, called him a war daddy. enough said. Next, next week. He had 5 games last year with at least 19 fantasy points. Another 2 with 15 fantasy points. I think he's going to be the number 1 guy going forward. I think his target share is going to go up. I don't believe in his teammates as much as most people do. I just think he's going to be the guy. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it. He had 64 receptions, almost 800 yards, 8 touchdowns.
What's his ADP right now?
I'm not looking
76.
76.
76. So like
Round 7.
yeah, around
Round 12
7.
team.
That's a damn good value.
Yeah, so I just think he's going to be the dude there. Yeah, I like him a lot.
You don't think Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs?
Christian Watson still drops a lot. I don't believe in that guy.
He said it.
He can run fast and he's a deep ball guy. But even then, he's boom or bust. Romeo Dobbs, he's a serviceable guy, but I just think he's going to be the guy going forward.
Playmaker. He was fun to watch last year.
Mm-hmm. A lot of rushing upside too.
Mm-hmm.
They use him in a lot of different ways.
I just think he's one to watch for.
I didn't know he was called War Daddy.
Yeah.
That's bona fide.
Bona fide.
Bona fide, dude. Oh yeah, he's a War Daddy.
Shit, I'll take him as a 4.
So
Yeah,
I just think I think there's guys every year who come out and surprise, and there's guys every year disappoint. He's gonna be that surprise guy this year.
Yeah, I get
Surprise.
Yeah, I think he's got the ability with that young core of Love and Romeo Dobbs we also mentioned too. I think they've got an ability also Christian Watson we mentioned too. I think they've got the ability to form a little bit of a tandem there, and I think they're in a window right now where they haven't truly distinguished who that guy is yet out of that group.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's an opportunity there between training camp and going into this season for somebody to kind of separate themselves from the pack. Like we said, brother, I think kind of going into the beginning of last year and in the middle, I think for a lot of time there was a talk of it kind of being Romeo Dobbs and Mata. There was a lot of praise there, and he had a lot of success. It really finished with 8 touchdowns last year, which is pretty good value from a guy from a rookie position. And to be honest, a guy like that coming in probably could do something to light that fire under a guy like Jayden and Watson to be able to take that next step as a group. Because obviously there's a lot of people expecting big things out of Green Bay this year.
It's gonna be a fun group.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun group. These guys are all young, Jayden at 24, Romeo's a young guy as well too. They've got a young core of tight ends in there as well who they really like. And with Jordan Love now just getting that contract, I think there's a lot to like there. So I think there's a lot of value here within that as EDP. What did you guys say? 76?
Yeah, 70. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, the biggest thing is I just want one of these Packers receivers. I'm a little lower on Romeo Dobbs, but between Jayden Reed and Christian Watson, if I could end up with one of them in my draft, I'd be happy because I think they're lottery tickets, especially if they're ADPs.
They're both an any given week type of player. Yeah, great for best ball.
Yeah, exactly. And to Jordan's point, none of them have really, kind of gotten the lead on the number 1 goal yet. So I think realistically, if either one of those guys, Romeo could as well. I'm just not as high on him from a fantasy perspective. I think they could either. I think either one of them could be very productive.
This conversation for me, the more I talk about Green Bay wide receivers, the more it just makes me think like, wow, Jordan Love is really good because we're sitting here talking about Jayden Reed, Romeo Dobbs, Dontavian Wicks, who didn't even mention Christian Watson, plus Grave Tucker Craft. We're talking about all of this guy's weapons potentially.
Well, who would
somebody who could be a fantasy option, a viable starter. One of those guys could be a starter on any given week because of Jordan Love. You know what I mean? Let's not confuse that.
Let's also not confuse too. It also should be a compliment to the guy we talked earlier, in Aaron Jones, being able to have the value of production and bringing the value of production that he had in the playoffs and at the end of last season, which even further proves my point is why he was a stud. He will continue to be a stud with the Vikings.
Sometimes you connect one too many dots, bro. This is an example.
I've been hanging out with you too long. I've turned into a conspiracy theorist.
Hey, all I'm saying is Justin Jefferson's going to get frustrated this year because Aaron Jones is going to get 60 check down passes.
Honestly, that could be a thing. I'll give you that.
Jake gets it.
It's not because Aaron Jones was good last year, J-Bo. Okay, that's not why.
Oh
And
man.
but yeah, so I digress from that. He's a war daddy. Next.
More daddy.
All right. Well, speaking of next, let's you're still on the board, my guy. So
So
start
yeah,
with your dud.
my dad is we were talking about him earlier, Jahmyr Gibbs, right? He's going as a top 5 running back, which I think is kind of asinine in my opinion. He's known as a receiving back, right? We all agree with that.
Fact.
That's what his niche is, like he's a receiving back.
Yeah, I just
So graceful.
go ahead. I'll
You know,
He's like a gazelle.
that's what he came in as. He's to be a receiving guy out of the back. And would you believe me if I told you he had very similar receiving stats to Ezekiel Elliott did last year?
Yes.
He actually did have a big
Yes.
season last
Right.
year, though.
Right.
He
So,
got too many checkdowns after Monte got hurt.
Yeah.
AKA Aaron Jones this year, but
Right.
I digress from there. But no, really, for a guy going to the top 5 running back and have those kind of similar stats to Ezekiel Elliott, I don't see him being the running back 5 this upcoming year. I think he has to score at least 4 more points per game to be bona fide running top 5 running back, and I don't see that from Jimmy Gibbs. No.
That's fair.
Like I said, I think Montgomery's gonna take up the majority of the touches, like he's touched on earlier.
Come on, bro. He's the heartbeat, baby.
And so I don't see Gibbs taking that jump. I kind of see stagnant, if anything.
So I got something to say, but I'll let Jordan go first since you wanted to say something earlier.
Yeah. So I think that this with Gibbs, I think he gets a little bit of a bad misconception about who he is. I think the idea of him just being a passing running back is a false narrative. I think if you go back to his numbers at Alabama, the guy was close to a 1K back. You hear Nick Saban talk about him. He says he's one of the most explosive 3-down backs. And if you talk about the running backs that have gone through Alabama, that's pretty high praise. If you look at his production last year based off his touches, the guy almost had a 1,000-yard rush season with less than 200 touches with an average of 5.2 yards carry. He had double-digit touchdowns rushing. He had over 50 yards receiving. And the guy only started 3 games last year in an offense that was full around, we said, David Montgomery. Dan Campbell was pretty outspoken in saying about how they're going to bring him along slowly because of how many touches he's gotten early in his career when he was at Georgia Tech and Alabama. And like we talked about earlier, Aryan mentioned the value of the fantasy production of David Montgomery. So if you have that luxury, we know how beat up running backs get in this league. And a lot of teams are moving into that running back tandem. So I think it's one of those things to where they're taking advantage of how good of another guy they have, and a guy like David Montgomery, because if he wasn't there, I think this guy would be like a C.J. Johnson type of guy. He's going to be a 2,000-plus yard production type of guy. And to be honest, that's the trend that I see in New York.
But David Montgomery is there, so you can't say if he wasn't there, he is there, right? So maybe in year 3, year 4, maybe he is that guy. But as of next year, just what we're going off of is next year, I think he's going to be running back 10 to 15 kind of guy.
I just don't think he has the build.
Fellas, I'm popping out real quick. I got to grab my charger.
Yep.
Okay. The only thing I would say to the whole David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs kind of conversation of that is with Jahmyr Gibbs, only Devon Achane in the top 12 of like consensus rankings has a guy that is going to be taking absolute tons of it. And those are the 2 guys that I kind of have the most fear on is that early draft pick, just because out of the other top 12 running backs, you don't have to worry about their ball. You don't have to worry about their ball. I could definitely see the bust case for Jahmyr in that regard because of the fact that everybody's drafting him as the lead guy, and he very well might see 35-40% of the touches instead. So I think that end of the first round and early second round is kind of a tough spot for me at running back in that regard. But if you look at the New Orleans Saints when they had Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara, similar, not offense necessarily, but a very run-heavy approach. Both of those guys were top 12 guys. So I could see the case where both are extremely productive because Jahmyr Gibbs reminds me a lot of Alvin Kamara, not necessarily in his ability to stay balance, because Alvin Kamara's balance is untouched. Like, nobody compares him in that regard.
Elite contact balance.
Yeah, but his explosiveness and his receiving ability out of the backfield, and they're putting him in the slot this year, especially in a league like ours where, running backs get at PPR and not receivers. I definitely see someone like him being a massive benefit. But I can also see the Bucs case because he's one of the few guys that we're drafting fairly high that has competition, and not even just competition in like a secondary role, but as a primary person.
I'll take him as a RB 10 to 15. I'm not going to take him as RB 5. I don't believe it.
I think the other thing to look at too is look at what happened when the Lions got a stat competition right last year against the Niners. The most explosive player on the field was
when you have to throw the football.
And with Jameson was not even just that too. That's the thing. Like, and once again, obviously that could be a difference of opinion, but this idea of him just being a receiving type of guy, Alex brought up a great comparison, but he is an Alvin Kamara, C.J. Johnson type guy, and to be honest, I actually think he's better. Once again, I mean, I'm very high on him. So I think there's a lot of ability there, and that's again, I think once again, they back that NFC Championship game against the Niners, and he was arguably the best player on the field.
Let me ask you this, man. So when you look at a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs, do you think to yourself, this guy's incredibly explosive, he's a really good player, but his volume will always be capped? Well, do you think that he's one of these guys, he could be a 3-down back, he can lead the team, and he can handle a full season workload?
His volume is capped because he has an extremely smart organization that knows how they want to play football. And so they run with two really good running backs instead of burning one to the ground who's only 22, 23 years old or whatever his age is. I mean, and this is once again, this is adding, and to be honest, Aryan, this is adding value and ammo to how you feel about David Montgomery.
Sure.
And honestly, this is probably helping out your point a little bit too, Jake. It can go both ways. And that's the brilliance of Ben Johnson as the OC in Detroit. He's been able to find the way, the best of both worlds, to turn Ross St. Brown into a number one receiver that just out the back, to change the trajectory of Jared Goff's career, to be able to find to find exactly turn cheese pizza into supreme pizza.
He put the pepperoni on that.
To be able to find enough touches for David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, because here's the other thing too. David Montgomery was dealing with some health issues in Chicago, but people weren't talking about Montgomery in Chicago the way they're talking about him now.
Hey, I did. I did.
Yeah, you did. Well, you weren't on a podcast, and you did.
Iowa State Cyclone, okay?
So, but like I said, I think Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson, the organization, are very smart on how they want to utilize the workload. Because as you brought up earlier, Aryan, the foundation of the Detroit Lions DNA is they're going to run the football, they're going to hit you in the mouth, they're going to bite kneecaps along the way. They're not going to do that. I like Jake's a lot better than yours.
Hey, everybody's got a type.
Is that work attire appropriate for plumbing in San Diego?
Dude, I can lay the pipe whenever I want, brother.
All right.
Kamish, take it away.
Yeah, last but not least, I guess it's my turn. I'll talk about my studs and depths. So for my stud, I got to go with Jameson Williams. We've talked a lot about the Detroit offense, and I think the biggest thing that they need is a big play threat on the outside. And that's what they drafted in 12th overall, coming off of an ACL tear in 2022. This dude is electric. He can get behind the defense with ease, and I think if you read anything about camp, his route tree is expanded. He can do just about anything they're asking him to do. Dan Campbell has been high on him for the last 2 years, but with the gambling and the ACL tear, his career obviously hasn't gotten off to the best start. But if you look at the way that they're using him,
you can just talk yourself out of it, man.
Yeah. Hey, you can question his character all you want, but the gambling thing was bullshit. If we're being real. Just because he placed a bet inside of their facility. It wasn't even on an NFL team. It's nothing Calvin did stuff.
What was he doing? Do you have any details on that?
He was hanging out with me. He took the over.
Yeah, I want to know what did he actually?
So he bet on a different sport. I don't know what sport it was, but because it was in the Detroit facility, he got in trouble for it and was suspended.
unless you did on the phone.
Yeah, like because as an athlete, the way I understand it is you can't gamble on anything in like the sports related stuff. Like as an NFL player, you can't bet on the NBA. And I don't know if that's exactly what he was doing, if he was betting on a Pistons game or something, but he would definitely be taking the under if that was the
But
case.
bet from the lose is a solid win.
Yeah, yeah.
So not as
But-
egregious as Calvin Ridley, is
No,
what you're saying.
no, no.
Okay.
It was just
Okay.
because he was in the facility, and you.
I was still out
technically-
on the guy.
Yeah, hey, that's fair. But like I said, he averaged 14.8 yards per catch last year. He got nothing but hype from his team and his coaching staff. He obviously produced at Alabama. You know, he was an absolute stud. And his ADP right now, compared to the guy I have on my depth list right next to him, I would much rather wait on Jameson Williams, who can be a potential weekly flex option in the round 10 range, compared to reaching on somebody that I'll talk about. So.
I think Jameson Williams is going to be used in the NFL the way he has been used in the NFL. And the NFL the way he was at the Ohio State University. He's a clear out guy. He's a guy that can send all and half down the field to open up things for the other guys. And when you have two extremely effective weapons underneath in Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta and Jahmyr Gibbs on running out of the backfield or slot, I see J-Mo being used more like that. Like you're going to have a couple games where you can have some explosive plays, for sure. For sure you can have some explosive plays. But I don't see him being a guy that develops fantasy consistency to the point where he's somebody that you're going to want in your starting lineup on a weekly basis. In my opinion of that.
Alex, real quick, are you seeing J-Mo's ADP around that 48-50 range? Is that where you're seeing it at?
No, he's at 115, round 10.
He's round 10?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Still a good value.
He's being massively undersold right now.
Yeah. So I think the thing with J-Mo is Aryan brings up some good points there. So far in the NFL, he's kind of been used as a gas.
That's what the Ohio State part. He went to Alabama. He went to Ohio State before he was
Yeah, he went. Yeah, he did go. He did go to Ohio State before Alabama. You know, the thing with J-Mo is he has been used predominantly as a gadget guy since he's been in the league. He's had some issues like we talked about, whether it's the health or the gambling thing. You wonder once again because of the addition of the explosive players there and the gadgets, or the explosive players and just all the mouths to feed. You wonder where he's going to be able to find himself in that offense, especially with how much they paid Amon-Ra St. Brown. And if you saw that documentary, that receiver Netflix documentary, he's pretty vocal about when he wants the football. So that's another thing too. But he is a very explosive player, and he is capable at any given time. I was actually just listening to a podcast on Twitter yesterday, and it was Justin Fields talking about how he thought Jameson got done wrong at Ohio State with all those other really big guys there, like Olave and Garrett Wilson, and they basically said he was always the vertical guy that they would sell because of how explosive he was, so the other guys could get open. So I think he's also been somebody who's been not totally utilized in his circumstance, because I mean, when he was at Alabama, he had over 1,500 yards receiving. He was one of the best receivers in the country with a star-studded roster. So, and for him to be able to do that, I can also see Alex's value, especially where he's at right now on the
It sounds to me like much like his bad decisions drafting him as a gamble.
I think in round 10, everybody's pretty much a gambler at that point. But duly noted.
Who's your dud commission?
So my dud is somebody that's actually gone before him, and that is Jordan Addison. I love Jordan Addison coming out. Out of USC, he was obviously an extremely talented player, and he was very productive last season. But with Justin Jefferson missing those 9 games or 8 games, he ended up having 10 touchdowns in total, which was number 4 in the league, but finished 29th in catches and yards. That was being the focal point of the offense. Granted, bad QB play, but we already discussed that and reasons why you guys think Justin Jefferson can't, overcome that. Justin Jefferson is QB proof. To me, Jordan Addison is not. And you want to talk about bad decisions? He got the DUI just a couple weeks ago, and he already got suspended for the first 3 games. So let's talk about how he's still going in round 7. People are buying off the hype of last year when he was missing the true number 1 option, and not even just a traditional number 1 option, top 3 receiver in the league type of option. I think the regression for touchdowns is clearly there, and I think he could even regress in the amount of catches and yards that he had last season as well.
How many touchdowns did he have?
10.
10 touchdowns? He's not doing that this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he had a couple of fluky ones too. I know Jordan probably remembers the Niner game one, end of the half, where he literally just rips the ball out of the DB's hands.
Yeah, Ward was in
Yards untouched.
Ward was in a great position on that one. But way to bring up some Niners pros.
I agree with you. I got no qualms with Walls. I think he's gonna be a bust.
Yeah, I think the thing with Addison is too, he got featured in that offense probably earlier than expected because of the situation that happened with Jefferson. So a lot was asked of him early. Now you can look at that one of two ways. It ended up being a blessing in disguise, as we see there's been other situations in the past with the Jahmyr Chase, Steve Higgins type of situation where two guys can be successful in offense. This is going back to Aryan's slogan, if JJ succeeds, they all.
J.A.
J's stick together. The J's stick together.
They stick together. So they have to. I mean, it's going to come down to the success of JJ McCarthy and what the head coach can do with that offense. I think that's going to be a big part on that 10 touchdowns. I think that was a big number as a rookie number. So obviously trying to replicate that year two, the idea of just playing 7 games. That's a tough one.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with any of that, or disagree with any of that. I think it's going to be extremely tough for him to be productive this year.
For sure.
That's why-
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say that's why he's on my NFC worth dead list. But
Fair enough. I got a bone to pick with the guy on a personal level. All right. So look, I'm a JSN stan. All right. And this is kind of a unique draft class. And this Jordan Addison balled out last year, right? In comparison to really all the other rookie wide receivers. I mean, what rookie wide receiver outperformed Jordan Addison last year? I don't think any, right?
Yeah,
but yet, when you look at the advanced metrics, have you guys ever taken a look at reception perception? It'll basically show how well a guy does against certain types of coverages and what parts of the field he's friendly to his quarterback, what parts of the field he's running his route, what parts of the field he's not. And he did not score that well on the receptions perceptions chart as far as getting open in certain parts of the field and specifically situational football. Whereas a guy like JSN, who had nowhere near the stat line that Jordan Addison had, his reception perception profile is off the charts. The guy is open all over the field. He's running routes for Chris McLean to make it happen. So I'm just upset that I drafted JSN and I Jordan Addison.
Real quick,
any fantasy points, I got a really good player. I'm just upset about it.
So you want to take?
so
Jordan Addison's fault.
real quick, you asked who had a better rookie season than Jordan Addison. I can't believe nobody at the stage thought about it.
Okay.
Yeah. Because to be fair, I did draft Puka. So
He doesn't count. Not even rookie.
He played like a veteran receiver, so you can't.
Yeah, bro. I didn't even think about him as a rookie. He literally played like a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
I watched that guy and like, this is the best wide receiver I've ever watched play football. That Detroit game, the playoff game, right? The Detroit game.
Yeah, the Detroit game. Yep.
Oh my God.
220 yards or whatever it was.
Let's talk about a grown ass man out there.
He did not play like a rookie at all.
Oh, against like one of the most physical teams in the league at their home facility.
Detroit's defense was not as physical as their offense was. Detroit's defense.
They got physical attitude.
And
They're not a great defense, but they got physical attitude.
Puka was another one of those guys who started off at Washington, was in a room with Pope, Jalen Pope, McMillan, Rome Odunze, and all those guys. And Rome, here in an interview stage, you were like, we knew this guy wasn't it. And then he leaves, goes to, I think he leaves, goes to BYU or something like that. And then ends up where he's at with the Rams. But there was people who saw it, and once again, especially with the wide receiver position, it takes that being in a good situation, quarterback play, opportunity, play calling, so many of those factors go into place. So especially when it comes into ranking these guys, especially from the receiver position, there's so many factors that are outside of these guys' control It makes it tough for bank and dictate these guys. It was like a guy like Addison last year. I mean, there was a ton of value and there was a ton of production coming out of Pittsburgh and USC out of college, but I don't think anybody thought that he would have double digits receiving touchdowns in his first season.
No, definitely
No.
not. And with a healthy Justin Jefferson, I don't know if he scores 6.
Yeah, just Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson.
Well, the other thing is
And
too
Aaron Jones.
with Addison too, you could also make the argument, and Alex brought this up earlier. Jordan Addison played a lot of that time with subpar quarterback play because of some.
He actually did get a good stretch with Kirk, though. Not
Yeah,
saying
but
that he went there the whole time, but he actually did have quite a few games with Kirk.
And that's the thing. There was that, but if people are, depending on how you feel about JJ, if there is success there and there is a little bit of first year success there with Addison and Jefferson, the other thing that you got to think about too is with Jefferson back out there, we all know that defensive coordinators are going to focus on Jefferson a whole lot more than Addison. So if Addison really is who we think he is, and he is a really good football player, then he does have the addition to be a T. Higgins type of number 2 guy next to Ja'Marr Chase and still have high value and high production.
Yeah.
Could happen. Could happen.
Could happen.
All right, guys. I think any other closing thoughts?
Just a quick side note. I don't know if you guys heard, but the New Orleans Saints, they just
Sound it
signed.
out.
They just signed a guy.
It's a
You
big
wanna
word
talk
like
about
mayonnaise.
Yeah, mouse. Listen, they just signed a guy, and that guy goes by the name of Samson Nakua. Okay, sibling of the great and powerful Puka Nakua. Samson's a little bit older, graduated from BYU, was cut from the Colts last year. But what we're hearing out of camp is that he's an even better version of Puka. So take him with the 101.
When the Bucks signed Giannis's brother, isn't that, hey, when the Bucks signed Giannis's brother, isn't that when all the shit went downhill? So what were you trying to say? It's gonna
What's
get
the whole
even worse.
point?
It's gonna get worse in the Saints now.
No, I just want to say they both have cool names, Samson and Puka.
He's saying Samson over Chris Olave.
That's all I'm
But-
saying.
You know what's funny is we will actually be talking about the NFC North on the next podcast. So who knows? You might even see a Chris Olave or a Samson.
NFC East, Commish.
No, North, South, East, West.
We're just talking about the North on this one.
Yeah, so North, South, and East, and West.
It's all right, Briggs. He'll get it. He'll figure it out eventually.
What's
We'll figure it out eventually.
Hey,
We'll let this one slide.
Frank, he doesn't get it.
He doesn't get it. He doesn't get it. He doesn't get it.
What's the old saying when you talk about directions North, South, East, and West, right?
No, it's never shredded wheat, but that's okay.
Oh,
We're not talking about the Kardashian kids, though.
talking about the equator and the prime meridian. That's right.
All right, boys. Thank you guys again. Follow us at Drafted Legacy on both Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and what's the other one you're doing? TikTok?
TikTok, yeah.
Yeah. Jake, actually, bottom left corner, is in charge of our social medias. So, got anything you want to see or anything you want us to discuss on the pod? Reach out to us and let us know. They'll be the one taking care of any of those kind of comments. But otherwise, thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Much love.
Build your legacy.